What if a stubborn Texas rancher and his grandson, armed with nothing but a tractor, rock-salt shotgun, and unyielding grit, took on a tyrannical HOA trying to reclaim their century-old family land through midnight raids and bureaucratic sabotage? Before we begin, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you never miss stories like this. The crisp white flyer was tucked neatly into our rusty Redwood Ranch mailbox. No postage. It felt more like a declaration of war than the friendly reminder it claimed to be. Clean air begins with you. The words chirped in offensively cheerful lettering. I remember just staring at it. The Texas sun beat down on my neck. A cold knot tightened in my gut. Our air on our land. It was the first shot fired, though we hadn't even known we were on a battlefield. Not yet. But then again, perhaps the real battle had begun months earlier, with the first distant guttural rumble of machinery, a sound that signaled the end of an era. Up until that point, Redwood Ranch had been my sanctuary. 200 acres of hard-packed Texas soil, stubborn fences, sun-burned cedar trees, a legacy. My great-granddad hadn't so much chosen this land as he'd been claimed by it. Traded a mule and good whiskey for it way back in '38. It was in my blood now, that same unyielding earth. That's why I came back right after college in Austin. I'd seen the sleek job offers, you know, the promises of air-conditioned futures under cold fluorescent lights. But the call of dazzle smoke, the honest feel of dirt under my nails, that was stronger, much stronger. People thought I was nuts. They didn't understand, couldn't feel the thrumming heartbeat of this place, a rhythm that connected you to something real, something that mattered. Grandpa Jed, he was the living embodiment of that rhythm. Tougher than coffin nails, he liked to say, even as time began to etch its relentless map onto his face and deep into his joints. He never asked for help, not once. But I saw it. The slight hesitation before he swung himself up into the old tractor. The dry, rasping cough that sometimes rattled his wiry frame after a long day mending barbed wire. His hands gnarled like ancient tree roots still held the wisdom of generations. But even Grandpa Jed, couldn't out-wrestle time. He was the reason I'd come home, to share the load, to help keep that heartbeat steady. We worked side by side, the silence between us often more telling than any words, a comfortable companionship forged in shared sunrises and the unspoken understanding of what this land truly meant. Then they came, or rather, the land next to ours, Old Man Hemlock's spread, it just vanished. One day it was rolling pasture, the next a scar of churned earth. Bulldozers like giant indifferent locusts, they began their feast. And from that scar, almost overnight, sprouted Willow Creek. That was the name of the new housing development, a sprawling grid of identical characterless houses. Vinyl coffins, Grandpa Jed called them, his voice laced with a rare, sharp bitterness. They pressed right up against our southern fence line, their manicured lawns and alien, almost aggressive green against our wild, sun-bleached grasses. The first few weeks there were waves, polite nods from the new folks. City folk mostly escaping to what they thought was country life. We'd wave back. It's the Texan way. But the smiles soon faded, replaced by curious, sometimes assessing glances. The atmosphere shifted subtly at first, an unspoken tension hanging in the air between our weathered working ranch and their pristine, master-planned community. Which brought us back to this flyer, this friendly reminder. I walked back to the porch, the paper crinkling in my fist. Grandpa Jed was there, watching the distant shimmering heat haze over the fields, his expression unreadable. I handed it to him. He read it slowly, his lips moving almost imperceptibly. Then he did something I rarely saw him do. He spat. A sharp, contemptuous sound. The tobacco juice hit the dry dust with a small puff. He crumpled the flyer into a tight, angry ball and tossed it towards the rusty Folgers can he used for an ashtray. It missed, landing a few inches short. A small act of defiance, perhaps, or maybe just a bad throw. "Reckon the honeymoon's over, Alex," he said, his voice a low rumble, like distant thunder. He squinted towards the neat, sterile rows of Willow Creek, a hard, cold glint in his faded blue eyes. "Looks like these city folk, they aim to teach us a thing or two about country living." I looked out at those vinyl coffins. So close now. So damn close we could almost hear their air conditioners hum their monotonous tune. And I knew with a certainty that settled deep in my bones, a cold, unwelcome knowing. This was more than just a nosy neighbor. This was different. This was trouble. The kind of trouble that didn't just knock on your door. Oh no, this kind of trouble. It tried to rewrite the deed to your very soul. And Redwood Ranch? Our ranch? Well, it wasn't about to yield. Not without one hell of a fight. Grandpa Jed was right. Of course, the honeymoon, if there ever was one, was decidedly over. That first flyer about clean air was just the opening whisper of the storm. A few weeks later, another laminated gem appeared in our mailbox. This one even more official-looking. Typed, sealed in plastic like some sacred relic. It was a formal complaint from the Willow Creek Homeowners Association Environmental Committee, a committee we hadn't even known existed. It stated, and I remember the words verbatim because they were so utterly absurd, that our cows, Bessie and her placid sisters, were emitting methane adjacent to community playground zones. Methane from cows. Apparently, this posed a dire threat to the delicate sensibilities and ecological footprint of Willow Creek. I actually laughed out loud when I read that one. "Grandpa Jed?" He didn't crack a smile. He just took the laminated letter from my hand, walked over to the outhouse, and nailed it to the inside of the door. "Let 'em frame that, Alex," he'd grunted. Good reading for when a man's contemplating things. His outward dismissal was typical Jed, but I saw the tightening around his eyes, the way his jaw set a little harder. He'd tell me, "That fence line ain't moving, son. Not an inch. Let them send all the plastic-coated paper they want." But he was watching them the same way he used to watch the horizon for a dust devil in a dry summer. Calm but coiled. Ready. The passive-aggressive nonsense continued for a while. Little notes, sideways glances. Then one afternoon, things took a decidedly less passive turn. I was out checking the fence line along the southern pasture, the one that abutted their precious community, when I saw it, a shiny white pickup truck, small, almost toy-like, with a ridiculous amber light blinking on top. And it wasn't on their side of the fence. Oh no, it was on our dirt. My dirt, redwood dirt. Maybe 100 yards inside our property line, puttering along like it owned the place. My blood started to simmer. No markings for law enforcement. Just a cheap magnetic decal slapped on the door. Willow Creek HOA Patrol. Since when did a bunch of busybodies with too much time on their hands get a patrol unit? I started walking towards it. Slow, deliberate. The driver, a man with a smug, over-moisturized face and tactical sunglasses that probably cost more than our tractor's starter, finally noticed me. He rolled down his window, a smirk playing on his lips like I was about to offer him a damn latte. "Officer Miller," he announced, tapping a badge on his golf shirt that read, HOA Enforcement Unit. Like that meant something out here. "You got a reason for being on this property, Miller?" I asked, keeping my voice flat, arms crossed. "Routine perimeter check," he said, all puffed up. "We're documenting possible environmental runoff from your side. Affects the Willow Creek ecological footprint, you know." He tapped a tablet. "We've had resident complaints about odor." Odor? Runoff? Ecological footprint? I took a step closer. "This ain't your perimeter, son. This is Westbrook land. Always has been. You're trespassing," he actually chuckled. "Technically, sir, we are authorized to patrol buffer zones that influence the quality of life within HOA jurisdiction." "Technically," I said, leaning in a little, my voice dropping. "I can legally remove a trespasser if I feel threatened. And right now, You're making that real tempting." His smile wavered just a little. He fumbled with his tablet, then his phone, muttering something about non-compliance and requesting backup. Backup in the middle of my pasture. I just shook my head and turned back towards the house. I didn't run. Never give a man the satisfaction of thinking he scared you. But I moved fast. Grandpa Jed was on the porch, sipping coffee from his chipped enamel mug, like it was just another Tuesday. "What's wrong?" he asked, though the set of my jaw probably told him enough. "There's a damn HOA cop out by the south fence," I growled. "Claims he's checking our, runoff." Grandpa Jed squinted towards the pasture. Then slowly he stood. His joints creaked like old fence hinges. He didn't say a word, just spat, adjusted his belt. "Where's the tractor with the winch, Alex?" he asked, his voice quiet. I blinked. "You serious, Grandpa?" He nodded once. A single decisive movement. "If that fool wants a perimeter, we'll give him a guided tour downhill." 5 minutes later, the winch cable was hooked to the rear axle of that HOA patrol truck. Miller was inside, doors locked, filming us with his phone, looking like a cornered possum. I gave him one last chance, banged on his window, told him to move his glorified golf cart. He just glared, so I fired up the tractor. Grandpa Jed walked beside me, a grim sort of satisfaction on his face. The truck jerked once, then twice, wheels skidding uselessly in the dry soil. We pulled him slow and steady across the barn slope, down towards the muddy edge of the creek. "Your boys got drones, right, Alex?" Grandpa Jed shouted over the tractor's engine, a wide grin splitting his weathered face. "Better get one. His little fella's about to go amphibious." The truck didn't sink all the way, just enough to lodge its front tires deep in a fat patch of creek bed muck, half submerged like some sad beached white whale. Miller finally bailed, scrambling out, sloshing into the mud, screeching about assault and federal protections and lawsuits. Grandpa Jed just tipped his hat to him like he'd just guided a stubborn steer into a pen. "Reckon we're done here," he said to me. Deadpan, Sheriff Brody showed up later that afternoon. Actual law. This time, he listened to our side, listened to Miller's hysterical version, looked at the truck in the creek, reviewed my phone footage of Miller on our land. Then he started to chuckle. A low rumble at first, then a full-bellied laugh. "So, let me get this straight," Deputy Sanchez, who was with him, said, barely holding back a grin. "He drove onto your land without permission, ignored your warnings to leave, and then you winched him into the creek." "That's about the shape of it," I said. Grandpa Jed added, "Didn't say it had to be a fast tour, just memorable." They filed a report, said we were in the clear, even accepted our offer of coffee. We thought, hoped that would be the end of it. We were wrong, so damn wrong. The HOA didn't appreciate being made to look like fools. Passive-aggressive became aggressive-aggressive real fast. It started with the mailbox again. One morning, I walked out to find it half-melted, reeking of something foul. Inside, among the soggy flyers, was a dead catfish wrapped in a plastic bag. Taped to it a note scrawled in angry red letters. "Rot where you belong." Grandpa Jed just sniffed it. "They're trying to act rural," he said. "Cute," we replaced the mailbox. Next day, someone jammed peanut butter into the door lock of our barn. Took me an hour to clean it out. Third day, a fresh pile of manure. Not ours. Definitely not ours. Showed up right on our front step, neatly shoveled like some hostile gift. It wasn't random. It was systematic. Someone from Willow Creek had declared war. We reported it to Sheriff Brody. Again, he opened a case, took photos, made polite noises, but without direct evidence. His hands were tied. We knew who was behind it, even if no one would say it out loud. The HOA brass was rattled. They'd been embarrassed, undermined, and now they were striking back. Petty, precise, underhanded. The kind of war waged by cowards in the dark. And it was only just beginning. That petty, underhanded war waged by the Willow Creek HOA, it didn't stay petty for long. The dead catfish, the peanut butter in the lock, the manure on our doorstep, those were just jabs, annoyances. Then came the night I caught two figures skulking near our tool shed, flipped on the floodlights, stormed out with the shotgun. Not loaded, but they didn't know that. They scrambled so fast one of them lost a shoe, a fancy running shoe. Definitely not ranch issue. I kept it. Tossed it on the porch like a grotesque war trophy. A clear message. Or so I thought. The worst, though, the act that really tightened the coil inside Grandpa Jed, was the cattle gate. Our east pasture found the heavy padlocks snipped clean by bolt cutters. Gates swung wide open. Two of our best calves had wandered out onto the county road. Lucky. So damn lucky neither of them got hit by traffic. Grandpa Jed didn't say a word when I showed him the busted lock. He just took it from my hand, his knuckles white, walked back towards the house like a man heading into a storm he knew he couldn't avoid, but one he damn well intended to meet head-on. That evening he poured 2 stiff bourbons. Didn't even ask. Handed me one, raised his glass. His eyes, they were like chips of blue ice. "You see, Alex," he said, his voice low, almost a growl, "that wasn't a prank. That was bait." He took a slow sip. "They're hoping we snap, lose our heads, give them something real to complain about." I nodded, seething at the audacity of it. "No," he continued, his gaze fixed on some distant point beyond the window. "We don't snap. We document. We prepare." He paused, and a chilling little smile touched his lips. "And next time we see 'em coming, we don't tow a truck, boy." His words hung in the air, heavy, ominous. I always thought that phrase, "the calm before the storm," was a bit dramatic until that Tuesday night. The sky hung too still, too quiet, like the land itself was holding its breath. Even the cicadas had gone silent. The kind of oppressive silence that makes your bones itch, makes the hair on the back of your neck stand up. I'd just locked up the barn, Max trotting quietly beside me, his ears twitching now and then, was heading inside when I saw it. A flicker of headlights cresting the low hill by the old unused cattle path. Not one pair, 3, maybe 4. My heart didn't speed up. It slowed, thudding heavy and deliberate. A hunter's beat. They weren't county trucks. Too clean, too smug-looking even from a distance. I recognized one of them. The Willow Creek utility pickup. The one with their damn HOA seal on the door, like it was the FBI. And behind them, rumbling louder than any summer thunder I'd ever heard, came a bright yellow Kubota tractor, brand new, gleaming under the pale moonlight like it just rolled off a showroom floor, with a plow mounted low on its front. A big one, I didn't think. I just reacted, turned on my heel and bolted for the house. "Grandpa!" I shouted, throwing open the screen door so hard it slammed against the clapboard. Max was barking now, a deep, agitated sound. Grandpa Jed was at the kitchen table, a half-eaten bowl of pinto beans in front of him. He didn't ask a single question. Didn't even look surprised. Just stood up, knocking over his bowl in his haste. Beans scattered across the linoleum. He walked straight to the hallway closet. I heard the familiar metallic chick of the pump-action shotgun he kept by his dusty work boots. No birdshot tonight. I knew. Salt rounds, rock salt, big jagged crystals. It wasn't about killing. Never was for Grandpa Jed. Not on our own land. It was about message delivery, the old-fashioned sizzling kind. "Go hit the floodlights, Alex," he said, his voice calm as a frozen pond. "Looks like we're about to host some nocturnal gardening enthusiasts." I sprinted out the back, Max at my heels, and through the main switches. Our homemade lighting system roared to life. A half-dozen industrial spotlights mounted on poles on the barn roof, lighting up the east field like it was a damn Friday night football game. And there they were, caught in the sudden harsh glare. 5 HOA clowns in reflective safety vests, blinking like startled owls, and a sixth perched proudly atop that gleaming Kubota tractor, like a damn king on a diesel-powered throne. They didn't even flinch much at the lights, too arrogant, too sure of themselves. One of them, a portly fellow I vaguely recognized from their board meetings they sometimes posted about, raised a megaphone. His amplified voice boomed across the pasture, harsh and distorted. "This is a community-approved ecological reclamation effort. Westbrook property, your pasture, has been deemed an environmental hazard. Pesticide runoff, livestock methane saturation, excessive dust exposure. You have been served multiple notices." Grandpa Jed stepped out onto the porch beside me, shirt unbuttoned, long johns visible underneath, shotgun resting easy on his shoulder like he was taking it to a barn dance on prom night. He didn't raise his voice. Didn't need to. "You've got exactly 3 seconds," he said, his voice low but sharp enough to cut the dew on the grass, "to reverse that overpriced toy and get it the hell off my land." The man with the megaphone hesitated, looked at the guy on the tractor. The tractor didn't stop. It lurched forward, the plow blade lowered, aiming to reclaim the first 20 FT of our wildflower patch, the one Grandma Rose had planted decades ago. I saw red, pure, unadulterated rage. Grandpa Jed didn't flinch, didn't even blink. He just stepped forward 2 paces, smooth, economical, aimed low towards the machine, not the man, and fired once. The sound cracked like lightning striking a dry oak, echoing across the silent pastures. The blast didn't hit flesh, but it did vaporize the left side view mirror of that brand-new Kubota, sent it spinning into the darkness, and it peppered the shiny yellow metal cowling with 100 glowing, sizzling salt flecks. The guy riding the tractor yelped, ducked low, yanked the wheel so hard he drove the damn thing straight into the wide drainage ditch that ran alongside the fence. There was a sickening crunch of metal kissing buried rock and an old fence post. The Kubota screamed and died. Front axle locked up tight. Then all hell broke loose. The others shouted, scattered like raccoons caught in a trash fire. One tripped over a roll of irrigation hose I'd left out and face-planted right into a water trough. Came up sputtering. Another, he ran straight into the barbed wire fence, flipped himself backward like a cartoon gymnast, landed flat on his ass with an oof. Grandpa Jed just pumped the shotgun, that chilling chick sound again. "Next one goes in the ass," he hollered, his voice now carrying the full force of his righteous anger. "Y'all want reclaimed dirt? Fine. I'll bury you in it." I just stood there, stunned for a second. Then I started laughing. Couldn't help it. Laughing like a damn hyena. "He's insane," one of them yelled, scrambling to climb into the bed of a pickup truck that peeled out before he could even get the tailgate shut, leaving him half in, half out. Within 30 seconds, they were gone, vanished back over the hill, leaving behind the paralyzed Kubota, the megaphone, and one single work boot lying forlornly in the illuminated grass. The guy who lost it apparently ran barefoot all the way back to Willow Creek, probably still picking out cactus thorns and burrs. Grandpa Jed turned to me, calm as anything. "Grab my flask from the kitchen, Alex," he said, his voice a little gravelly. My blood sugar's low from all that restraint. I handed it to him without a word, still trying to process what I'd just seen. He took a long sip, coughed once, looked out over the rutted grass, the smoking salt craters on the Kubota's hood, the paralyzed bright yellow machine tilted awkwardly in the ditch. "Damn shame," he said, shaking his head slowly. "Could have been a nice tractor. Real shame they tried to use it for dumbassery." I finally found my voice. It came out a little shaky. "What? What the hell do we even do now, Grandpa?" He took another sip from the flask. Then he smiled, a slow, cold smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. "Now," he said, his voice soft but with an edge of tempered steel. "Now we lawyer the hell up, boy," he capped the flask. "Because if they're bringing tractors onto our land in the dead of night, it means they know they've already lost on paper." "Lawyer up!" Grandpa Jed's words still hung in the pre-dawn air, heavy with the scent of spent gunpowder and damp earth. By sunrise, that bright yellow Kubota still sat crooked in the ditch, like some bizarre wounded trophy from a war we never asked for. We didn't touch it. Let it be a monument to their stupidity. Sheriff Brody rolled in around mid-morning. Max, our old hound, didn't even bother to bark much, just a low woof of acknowledgement. Brody took one long look at the paralyzed tractor, another at the ruts carved into our pasture. He whistled low, a slow, drawn-out sound, walked around the Kubota, kicking one of its massive tires. "Well, Alex, Jed," he said, pushing his hat back on his head. "They really did it this time, didn't they?" He took photos, lots of them, jotted notes in his little spiral-bound pad. The official report I saw later read something like, "Unlawful nighttime intrusion, unauthorized land disturbance, attempted property damage." Sounded about right. The HOA's shiny tractor was impounded by the county. Their megaphone, too. Grandpa Jed actually asked if he could keep the megaphone as a souvenir. Sheriff Brody just grinned and shook his head. "Evidence, Jed. Evidence. Shame." Grandpa could have had some fun with that. We thought maybe, just maybe, that would finally slow them down. A public humiliation, law enforcement involved. Their expensive new toy hauled away on a flatbed. Surely even the thick-skulled board of the Willow Creek HOA would see sense now. Retreat, lick their wounds, leave us the hell alone. We were naive, so damn naive. Instead of retreating, Willow Creek doubled down like a desperate gambler holding a pair of twos, convinced the next card would be his salvation. Only this time, they traded their boots-on-the-ground idiocy for bureaucratic warfare. 3 days after what Grandpa Jed started calling the salted assault, a thick envelope arrived. Certified mail, looked official, felt heavy. Inside, a notice from the Municipal Zoning Board, a proposal to reclassify the outer 50-foot border of our property, as a transitional environmental buffer zone. I had to read that mouthful 3 times. The translation buried in pages of legalese and environmental gobbledygook was simple enough. They wanted to slap a whole new set of restrictions on our land. Limit grazing near the creek, block our irrigation rights, even install mandatory soil monitors. Monitors controlled by them seemed. It was a nuclear move, all dressed up in fancy policy talk, a way to choke us out, to regulate us into extinction without ever setting foot on Redwood Ranch again. They're trying to regulate us into the poorhouse. "Grandpa," I muttered, the papers shaking slightly in my hand. Grandpa Jed flipped through the packet, his expression grim. Then he snorted, a dry, dismissive sound. "These people ever hear of the Alamo, Alex?" he said, tossing the papers onto the kitchen table. "Texans don't fold. We reload." And he wasn't joking. We met with our attorney the next day, Ellen Vance, an old friend of Grandpa Jed's. More like family, really. Ellen was a spitfire, 5'2", of righteous fury, wrapped in a tailored suit. She'd once sued a pipeline company into near bankruptcy for leaking sludge near a kid's playground, and won big. She didn't blink once as she read through the zoning notice, her sharp eyes scanning every line. When she was done, she looked up, a dangerous glint in her eye. "This," she said, her voice calm but laced with steel, "is targeted harassment through procedural abuse. Classic HOA overreach weaponized, and it's going to bite them right in their manicured—" She paused, a small smile playing on her lips. "Well, you get the picture." Ellen helped us draft a formal counterfiling, demanded public hearings, said we needed to shine a very bright light on these particular cockroaches. Grandpa Jed, bless his stubborn heart, insisted we not just defend ourselves. "We go on offense, Ellen," he'd said, banging a fist on her mahogany desk. "Time these folks learned Redwood Ranch ain't some doormat." So we did. I spent 2 solid days fueled by coffee and righteous anger building a website, handsoffredwood.org. Posted everything. Photos of the HOA's little pre-dawn eco-raid, the mangled, salt-pitted Kubota, the boot they left behind. I uploaded the security cam footage we had. Miller's trespass, the shadowy figures near the tool shed. Wrote open letters, started a petition, and it took off like wildfire in a dry canyon. Local media picked up the story. Ranchers versus HOA zealots. Farmers, ranchers from all over the state. Libertarians, even a surprising number of exasperated suburbanites who'd had their own run-ins with overzealous HOAs, they all got on board. We had 10,000 signatures in 48 hours. My inbox was flooded with messages of support. Some offered help. Some just wanted to say, "Give them hell." The public hearing was scheduled within the week. It seemed for a moment like the tide was turning. But the Willow Creek HOA, they weren't done getting nasty. Not by a long shot. Someone called the county health department. Anonymous tip, reporting that our well water was contaminated. A potential threat to community health. Lies, all of it. But we still had to dump nearly 600 gallons of perfectly clean reserve water while they did their tests. Tests that, of course, came back clean. Next, our mail started going missing. Not all of it, just the important stuff. Anything from the court, from Ellen, from the zoning board, vanished. Then came the worst one. The one that pushed Grandpa Jed past his breaking point. Late one Thursday night. His truck, his beloved 20-year-old Ford. Tires shredded. Every single one. Paint carved down to bare metal with what looked like a box cutter. And on the hood, in jagged, angry letters, someone had keyed the word yield. Your teether. Grandpa Jed just stood there, jaw tight as a vice, not saying a word. Didn't even call Sheriff Brody right away. He just reached into the glove box, pulled out a worn, faded Polaroid, him and my Grandma Rose, taken way back in '72, smiling by the old oak tree. He checked to make sure it wasn't touched, slipped it back inside. Then he calmly locked the truck door, turned to me. His eyes, I'll never forget the look in his eyes. Pure, unyielding Texas iron. "We don't yield, Alex," he said, his voice quiet, but harder than any stone. "We sue," and that was it. We filed the lawsuit the very next morning. Harassment, trespassing, attempted property destruction, conspiracy to defraud through municipal manipulation, defamation by official correspondence. We threw the whole damn book at them. It wasn't just about fences or tractors or zoning anymore. It was about drawing a line in the dirt. A line that no damn clipboard, no HOA meeting, no manicured neighborhood vote could cross. And if they tried, well, let's just say we still had plenty of salt. And now we had Ellen Vance. We sue. Grandpa Jed's words had been a promise. A line drawn not just in the dirt of Redwood Ranch, but on the very steps of the county courthouse. And now here we were. The courthouse smelled like stale coffee, old paper, and a peculiar kind of institutional despair. But that morning, it felt different. It felt like a battlefield. Word had gotten out, not just in our small Texas town, but online, thanks to handsoffredwood.org. Our story had legs. Farmers in denim overalls stood shoulder to shoulder with veterans in crisp Legion caps. Libertarians with Gadsden flags talked quietly with homesteaders who knew the sting of bureaucratic overreach. Even a few soccer moms who'd had their own HOA traumas showed up looking for a little vicarious justice. I counted at least 4 local news vans parked outside. 2 bloggers with those blinding ring lights were already live streaming. And a guy in a full-body chicken costume was holding a sign that read, "Let farmers be free range." You couldn't make this stuff up. We wore our Sunday best, or our version of it. Grandpa Jed showed up in a freshly pressed denim shirt, a smart bolo tie with a turquoise clasp, and his only pair of boots that weren't caked in mud or manure. I'd offered him a blazer, My old graduation one. He just growled. Son, if the judge don't respect good denim and honest sweat, we've already lost this fight before it starts. Fair enough. Our attorney, Ellen Vance, she was pacing the polished hallway like a bantam rooster in a hen house full of foxes. Maybe 5'2" if she stretched, but radiating enough righteous fire to power a small city. She had 3 bulging binders tucked under one arm and a flash drive on a silver chain around her neck like a warrior's talisman. Opposite us, by the courtroom doors, sat the Willow Creek HOA contingent. 4 board members, men and women looking stiff and uncomfortable in matching navy blue suits, trying to look like pillars of the community. And with them, their lawyer, a slick, greasy-haired import from some high-rise in Dallas, Bluetooth permanently affixed to one ear. He gave us a smug little nod, the kind that says, I charge by the hour to ruin people's lives and businesses. Good. Grandpa Jed just winked back, slow and deliberate. The kind of wink that says, Son, you have no idea what you just stepped in. Court came to order at 9 a.m. sharp. The judge assigned to our case was a woman named Evelyn Hayes. Lean, no nonsense, with a reputation for not tolerating fools or HOA shenanigans. Good. We needed that. Ellen Vance stood first. Calm, clear, lethal. She didn't start with legal arguments. Oh no, she started with the video. Our security cam footage of the HOA's pre-dawn ecological raid played out on a massive projector screen for the whole courtroom to see. There it was, Willow Creek's shiny orange Kubota tractor plowing into private land at 2 hots in the morning. Then the blaze of our floodlights and one very loud, very effective shotgun blast. A ripple of murmurs went through the gallery. Then came the footage of the damaged mailbox, the bolt-cut gate, Grandpa Jed's slashed tires, the zoning abuse documents. Ellen didn't just argue. She built a fortress of facts, each exhibit landing like a hammer blow on stone. When she played the video of Officer Miller's HOA patrol truck being unceremoniously winched into the creek, the courtroom actually erupted. Not just chuckles, full-throated laughter. Even Judge Hayes. I swear I saw the corner of her mouth twitch upwards into a smirk before she cleared her throat and banged her gavel, warning the gallery to maintain order. Grandpa Jed leaned over to me, a mischievous glint in his eye, whispered, You think she wants a copy of that one? Alex, the HOA's Dallas lawyer, he tried. He really did. Stood up, smoothed his silk tie, claimed we were the aggressors, that we escalated things, terrorized their peaceful community, that our very presence, our ranch, reduced their precious property values. He droned on about covenants and bylaws and the aesthetic integrity of Willow Creek. Ellen let him talk, let him dig his own grave. Then she rose, like a summer storm gathering force. Your Honor, she began, her voice ringing with conviction. My clients, Alex and Jedediah Westbrook, built their lives on that land. Their family has worked that soil for nearly a century. They have followed every law, respected every boundary line, and stayed largely silent through months of escalating harassment, vandalism, intimidation, and an official overreach so absurd it could be a sitcom pilot. She paused, letting her words sink in. This is not about grass clippings, Your Honor, or property values, or the aesthetic integrity of a cookie-cutter subdivision. Her voice rose a notch. This is about a private family being stalked, sabotaged, and systematically tormented by a group of uniformed amateurs with delusions of tyrannical authority. Then she turned slowly and pointed straight at Grandpa Jed. And this man, she declared, her voice softening just a fraction, but losing none of its power. This man defended his home, his livelihood, his legacy, with nothing but an old tractor, a shotgun loaded with rock salt, and the kind of quiet dignity they clearly don't teach in HOA boardrooms. The gallery, it just broke. Spontaneous applause, loud and sustained. Judge Hayes banged her gavel, but this time she let it roll for a few seconds. A small smile played on her lips. When Grandpa Jed took the stand, the courtroom went silent, hushed, expectant. He didn't speak fast, didn't rant or rave, just told it like it was. About the land, about Grandma Rose, about the quiet life they'd built. He even told a story about some fool from the city years ago who'd tried to tell him he couldn't drive his tractor on a county road and got chased halfway back to Austin with a rusty shovel for his troubles. The courtroom chuckled again. Then he paused, looked straight at Judge Hayes. "Your Honor," he said, his voice steady and clear, "I fought overseas for this country. Saw what happens when folks forget where the lines are drawn, when they try to take what ain't theirs." He took a breath. "I came back to Redwood Ranch to raise cattle, not war. But if someone, anyone, tries to run their flag up on my pasture, be it a foreign army or a homeowners association from down the road, I will meet them at the line with rope or with law." He paused again. Preferably with law. Silence. Absolute silence in that courtroom. Judge Hayes nodded slowly, scribbled something on a notepad. You could have heard a pin drop. And in that silence, I felt a flicker of something I hadn't dared to feel for months. Hope. That hope I'd felt. It wasn't misplaced. Judge Evelyn Hayes didn't keep us waiting long. Court reconvened just after lunch. Her voice, when she read the verdict, was clear, deliberate, sharp enough to carve stone. The Willow Creek Homeowners Association found guilty on all counts, every last one. Harassment, trespass, property damage, abuse of legal process, attempted municipal manipulation, unauthorized security enforcement. The list went on. Fines were issued, heavy ones. Criminal referrals were filed against 2 of their board members for document forgery related to those bogus environmental notices. And then came the kicker. They were ordered to pay Redwood Ranch a sum that made my jaw drop. Damages. Restitution for what they'd put us through. Legal fees for Ellen Vance. Emotional and reputational harm covered. Ellen just grinned, a fierce, satisfied little smile. Grandpa Jed, he simply nodded once, leaned over to me and whispered, "That'll pay for a new tin roof for the barn and maybe a bigger salt bin." Judge Hayes finished by banning HOA patrols from Willow Creek permanently, and she instituted a court-ordered restructuring of their entire board with independent oversight for 5 years. Game over. Outside the courthouse, it was bedlam. The crowd went wild. Reporters swarmed us, microphones thrust in our faces. Somebody handed Grandpa Jed a lit cigar. He actually puffed on it, looking like a weathered old general surveying a victorious battlefield. A local teenager, beaming, handed me a T-shirt he'd made right there on the spot. It read, "Let the tractor testify." I wore it with pride, and somewhere under a Texas sky that finally looked free of those smug, encroaching shadows, I realized this wasn't just a win for us, for Redwood Ranch. This was a line drawn in the dirt for everyone to see, and nobody would dare cross it again. 3 weeks after the verdict, the Willow Creek HOA board looked like a ghost town, their little patrol vehicle gone, their officious banners and signs taken down, their once-weekly newsletter, the Community Pulse. Well, it hadn't pulsed in 22 days. In its place, peace. The kind of deep, quiet peace that settles in your chest, like warm coffee on a cold morning. No more late-night lights flickering in the pasture. No more laminated threats in the mailbox. Just the lowing of cows in the distance, the whisper of the wind through the cedar trees, and the occasional contented snort from Grandpa Jed when he nodded off on the porch swing. The settlement money, it didn't change us much. Not really. Grandpa Jed, true to his word, bought that new tin roof for the barn, reinforced the old support beams, and he ordered a custom-built heavy-duty salt spreader for the back of the big tractor. He christened it the HOA remover. I suggested we invest the rest sensibly. He suggested we bury it in ammo cans under the old tool shed just in case. We compromised. I used my share to finally build out the Redwood Ranch Youth Ag School, a small program I'd been dreaming up for years. Free workshops for local kids, for veterans, for anyone who wanted to learn real farming, the way Grandma Rose and Grandpa Jed had taught me. No bureaucracy, no dress code, just soil, sun, and stories. Grandpa Jed called it recruiting for the resistance. I just called it good sense. The story didn't quite end in court, though. See that video of the HOA's truck being dragged into the creek? Someone somewhere added a soundtrack to it from The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. It went viral, millions of views. We started getting mail from folks as far away as Idaho and Vermont. People sent letters, small gifts. One fella even sent a beautiful hand-carved wooden sign. It said, "If you can read this, you're standing on private property. Bring coffee, or back away slowly." We hung it right by the main gate, and every July now, on the anniversary of the Great Creek winching, we host a barbecue. Tractor Justice Day, we call it. Neighbors come from both sides of the fence. Some from Willow Creek, too, now that it's run by people with more common sense than ego. There's brisket, cornbread, and exactly one party game. Pin the citation on the HOA. It's a big hit. This year, Grandpa Jed sat near the grill, a circle of wide-eyed kids around him, telling the story again. And I heard him say, squinting against the setting sun, "If you'll ever want to reclaim land, you start with the part between your own two ears." They didn't fully get it, I don't think, but they laughed anyway. As the sun finally dipped behind the western ridge and the porch lights flickered on one by one, I took a long look out at our land, unchanged, untamed, ours. Turns out, sometimes justice doesn't wear a robe or sit behind a fancy bench. Sometimes it drives an old tractor and loads the shells itself. And if you're really lucky, it also makes a damn mean bourbon chili. The secret? Grandpa Jed says is a little bit of rock salt, just a pinch.